Hi, class. So today in our intervention groups, we are going to be doing what's called a flipped lesson. Now, a flipped lesson requires something on your part before you get to class, and that activity that you are going to need to complete is to watch this video. So in this video, I am going to be stating the standards and objectives that we need to reach by the end of this lesson. And then I'm going to discuss the activities that we're going to be doing in class with your groups. And then finally, I am going to read you this book called Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. That is what our lesson is centered about. We are working on reading fluency and reading comprehension. And this is the book that I chose for us to work on to do that because it's such a fun little story. So I'm going to start out by just reading the standards and objectives. And these are from the Louisiana State Student Standards Guidelines. Ask and answer questions about key details in a text. Retell stories, including key details. Recognize and understand the central message or lesson. Describe characters, settings, and major events in a story using key details. Identify words and phrases in stories or poems that suggest feelings or appeal to the senses. Explain major differences between books that tell stories and books that give information, drawing on a wide reading of a range of text types. Identify who is telling the story at various points in a text, and use illustrations and details in a story to describe its characters, settings, or events. So the activity that you need to complete before you come to class is this right here. You just need to watch this video, listen to me read this story to you, and then we are going to come together in class and we're going to complete the character, setting, and events worksheet with your group. It looks like this. So you can see right here, it's got a spot to draw the characters, a spot to draw the setting. And then down here, I know that the numbers are on the side. You can either write a sentence or you can draw pictures right here about the main events in the story. Of course, you can't forget your name and the title of the book, which all of these will be available to you for spelling on the board. And then our early finishers, good job. You are going to draw a picture of your favorite part of the book with a sentence at the very bottom telling me about your picture and why you like this part of the story. What made it stick out to you? And that's going to look like this. It's got a spot for your name. It says my favorite part. And then I even help you out a little bit. You're going to draw a picture here. And then down here at the bottom, it says, my favorite part of the story was, and then you just have to fill it in. Now, this isn't about perfection. You don't have to spell things correctly. You just have to do your best, and you have to do it independently. It doesn't matter if it's spelled correctly or not. I just want to hear your opinion. I want to know why you like this story so much. All right, and then at the very end, we're going to do some comprehension questions. These are a great way to practice and to assess what you know about the story and if you're getting that understanding. So the first question we're going to ask is, who is the main character in the story? Who in this story is it about? Who are we talking about? Who do we see on every single page? The next question is, what happens when Max is sent to his room in the beginning of the story? Now, some of these questions may not make sense yet, but they will whenever we're done with the book. I'm just going ahead and telling you so that you can kind of know what to look out for. Is this book a real story or is it made up to teach us a lesson? Now remember, there are books and stories that are about true things, and there are books and stories that are about false things to kind of teach us a lesson. What kind of costume does Max wear in this story? Tells us right at the beginning, so there's your little clue. What lesson do you think Max learns at the end of the story? So this is where we're going to be starting, okay? So I'm going to pause and I'm going to switch my screen over to the book and we're going to get started. Here we go, Where the Wild Things Are. Now, I want to also say if you have a copy of this book, I want you to go ahead and open it up, and I want you to take your finger and follow along with me as I read so you can get familiar with those words and try to read them by yourself if you can. Here we go. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind and another. His mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, I'll eat you up. So he was sent to bed without eating anything. That very night in Max's room, a forest grew and grew and grew until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world all around and grew. And an ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max, and he sailed off through night and day. And in and out of weeks and almost a year to where the wild things are. And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. Till Max said, "Be still," and tamed them with the magic trick of staring into all their yellow eyes without blinking once. And they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all, and made him king of all the wild things. "And now," cried Max, "let the wild rumpus start." "Now stop," Max said, and sent the wild things off to bed without their supper. And Max, the king of all wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Then all around, from far away across the world, he smelled good things to eat. So he gave up being king of where the wild things are. But the wild things cried, "Oh, please don't go. We'll eat you up. We love you so." And Max said, "No." The wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye and sailed back over a year and in and out of weeks and through a day and into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. And it was still hot. The end. Okay, so now we're going to go over these comprehension questions one more time, and I want you to kind of think about your answers so when you come to class, you are ready to go and ready to talk about them. Who is the main character in this story? So who is the story talking about the whole time? What happens when Max is sent to his room in the very beginning of the story? Not when he gets home. What happens in the beginning? Is this book a real story, or is it made up to teach us a lesson? Do you think that all of these things really happened? What kind of costume does Max wear in this story? Now, if you need to go back and look, it's on like the first or second page. So there's a little clue for you. What lesson do you think Max learns at the end of the story? So these are some questions that I want you to think about and be ready to answer when you come back to class. Be thinking about the favorite part of the story and think about the main characters, where the story takes place, and the main events in the story. I hope that you guys enjoyed listening to this book, because I sure did enjoy reading it to you, and I will see you all in class. Bye.